Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, we're going to be talking to the women in our audience, but for you men, you need to pay attention to this too, because you have women in your lives that really need this information. So we're going to have so much fun today talking about why it's so important for women to serve on boards. And we're going to tell you much more about that and what that means. But please join me in welcoming Michele Ashby to our program today. Welcome, Michele.
Hi, Deb. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yay. So much fun to be talking to somebody back in Denver. I always love that when I'm talking to somebody back home. So that's great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this.
Great.
So Michele Ashby is on a mission to train 1,000 women to take their place on corporate boards. She is the founder and CEO of ACE LLC, which is Ashby Consulting Enterprises, and has 30 years of experience as a gold specialist analyst, financial expert, independent corporate director, and successful entrepreneur. She was also named one of the top 25 most powerful women in Colorado. So again, Michele, welcome.
Thank you. I feel like I should
I know,
most powerful woman,
do our power poses, right?
Yeah.
Well, I always like knowing more about my guests. So tell us, what got you to where you are today and how you determined that this really is your passion in life?
Sure, absolutely. So I think that the best way to start is with my brokerage career.
Mm-hmm.
And I started in the brokerage industry in the 80s when we had a wave of quotas where companies had to meet these quotas to get as many women in as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I entered in that wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I became a stockbroker, and I quickly decided to focus on being a specialist because everybody was a generalist and they're
Right.
just, so I focused in on gold stocks, and that was an accident, but it turned out to be very fortuitous, and became a mining analyst. I became very good at it. My goal was to be one of the top 10 brokers in the country in the gold mining space, which is what I did. And from there, after a number of years of success in building my books and my reputation and getting to know companies, I formed a trade association for the gold mining industry, based in Denver, but international. Okay. And I ran that for 18 years. I built it into an institution. I worked with the CEOs of all the producing gold mining companies in the world that were publicly traded and their largest investors. Remember, I come in from the financial side.
Right.
I'm not a technical mining person. And through that, I became very well known in the industry because this particular association that I put together became very, it was something everybody wanted to be a part of. And I was invited to my first board in 2005. I've had subsequent businesses. So I just want to make sure people understand that I was running full-time businesses and sitting on boards. It's a part-time job. I didn't even know that I was a board candidate when I was invited to my first board. And since then, I've sat on six corporate boards. These are paying positions with, compensation, equity, et cetera, et cetera. And fast forward to 2016, I, during my career, 30 years with two male-dominated industries, worked with men my entire life, and have been mentored by wonderful gentlemen and included, and I just loved everything, like it all was really great. And, but I watched my male mentors climb the corporate ladder, get on 3 or 4 boards, retire out. They're making 6 figures, working part-time. and they've got stock options, and they're set. Their family's set. They're playing golf, and they have meetings, once a quarter. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
Right.
That's where I'm headed. Right. So in 2016, I'm in this place where I had a pause in my career. Okay. And it was like, maybe it's time for me to get on 3 and 4. I was on 2 boards at the time. But at the same time, there's all this noise. There aren't enough women. There aren't enough women. And I'm like, really? But I didn't know any women myself. I was working with men all the time. Men have the power and the money. They make those decisions. So I was sitting in those rooms with them and helping make those decisions. So I thought, well, how do I get to know this for a fact? Because I'm an analyst, I need to do my homework.
Right.
So I interviewed 200 women over 18 months. Coffee, lunch, dinner, cocktails, whatever. And my questions were, why aren't there more women on boards? Why aren't you on a board? And tell me about your career. And I literally started a file called Super Women. I was so impressed with their qualifications, their experiences and everything they'd done. And I sat across the table from these ladies and I'm like, you're competent, you're confident, you're qualified, but you don't know it. And you don't know how to get in there. And then it occurred to me that I knew something they didn't know. In fact, I knew a lot of things they didn't know. And I belong to a peer advisory group. For any business owners out there, I encourage you to sign up for one of those if you can find it. And I was in my monthly meeting, and one of the guys said, why don't you do something about that? I called it my woman thing, that woman thing. And I went home, and that weekend I woke up on a Saturday night, couldn't sleep, got a legal pad out and started, how would it look if I were to create a program to help women get on boards? Filled the legal pad with the whole plan, everything, price, curriculum, how many I wanted to teach, everything. And I launched it in the middle of 2017. I just started, my website and started putting it together and telling people this is what I'm going to do, and convincing them to pay me to do something that they'd never seen me do before, but they trusted me, and built my programs. And so that's how this came to be. And I set a bodacious goal. First of all, I'm very impatient. Second of all, this has to happen faster. It was going so slow. I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. So I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it quickly. I'm going to get as many as I can, as quickly as I can. I don't know how, but that's my goal. And I created 2 programs. One is in certification, which I do in person or virtually in person. And the other is an online primer series that people can take anytime they want and just kind of get a feel for, am I board material? Is this something I'd really like to get into? And to date, I'm over 500.
Wow. So
Not bad.
You're close. You're more than halfway to your goal.
Yes. So over 400 women have signed up for my online and taken that. And I offer coaching with that. And a couple women have gotten on boards. My certification, I just finished a cohort on Monday. And so we have 91 women who have gone through that certified. We've filled about 50 board seats so far with that group. I had a woman in my last class who was appointed to the board of Pinterest.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've had huge success. They've had huge success. 5 of those women became CEOs of companies after they took my program. And 2 new companies have been formed out of women. So it's a very transformational process that these ladies go through, which then they get to recognize in themselves how competent and confident they are, and they can go get what they want. And I'll, for me, it's like I give them permission and some, coaching and it's amazing. So that's how I ended up here.
I love it. I love it. And I've always told people, especially, maybe it's a younger person just graduating from college, that serving, volunteering for a nonprofit is fabulous, because it's, and especially if you can serve on the board, because you get a lot of experience that way, and you get to meet people that are the movers and shakers. And so I always encourage people to do that. But I'll be honest, and I'm guessing this is the way for many people. They're thinking, why why would I even consider serving? What's in it for me? But why would I consider, why is it important for women to be serving on these boards?
Well, so when we're talking about corporate boardroom, that's where the power and the money lie. So it's at the very top of a corporation. Facebook doesn't do anything without Mark Zuckerberg and the board of directors make a decision. And that could be affecting their clients, or it could be affecting their employees. So all the budgets are approved there. All of the new initiatives are approved there. All of the things that are, that affect everyone are made at the very top. And the majority of those people are white males who are 63 years old and have been.
I know. You look at pictures of boards of directors and it's like, wow, they're just cut and paste. And
and they have been for hundreds of years, right?
Right.
And so here's why. Women are half the population. And we are 70% of the purchasers. So we have more buying power than men do, actually. But we don't have a voice at the table.
Right.
And it's about the voice, but on the other side, it's about the outcomes for me. When I did my research, what I recognized, and I want parity. I'm going for 50-50. We bring different things to the table, right? Men are objective, women are relational. Men go straight for the goal, and sometimes they run over people as they're getting there. Women are planners and organizers, and sometimes they never get to the goal because they're so busy planning and organizing. So the two really complement each other. And they take into consideration together the effect that those decisions have on so many parties. Okay, the executive team, the management team, the peon employees at the very bottom that are working in the warehouse packing our packages right now. The clients, the customers, the vendors. Those decisions affect every one of those levels, right? And so when you have a woman in there, when you have it that's 50-50, the conversations are different. The conversations now aren't just like, great goal, let's just go. The great goal, and what's our strategy? What's the plan? And are we going to consider, like, did we think about how it's going to affect the community when we open this giant warehouse in this particular area? And if it does, how are we going to accommodate? Right? So I think that's the other thing. So it's not just return on investment, although I think that we would see, and it's been proven, research has shown that boards that have more women than on them, not more women than men, but more women than other boards, actually have a higher return on investment than the ones who are all white male, 63-year-old average people. And so that should be motivation on its own. Like we have, and shareholder value goes up, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, it's really the effect on everyone within the corporation and also those who are using their products, et cetera.
Right. So how, so a woman decides, this is great, I want to do this. Then what? I mean, I think the assumption is that boards of directors are made up. I mean, we're going to use the term good old boy network.
Right.
And so the board is made up of their buddies, their friends, or investors. I mean, who wouldn't like to have a Warren Buffett on your board? But that's really, in some cases, I mean, yes, that is true. But in order for the boards to be effective, they know that they need to have outside members. They need to have diversity. They need to have different points of view. I mean, all these various things. So how, say this woman decides, say I decide, okay, hey, this is great, I want to go on a board. Then what the heck do I do?
Yeah. So you've got to get prepared.
Right.
I think that the worst thing a woman can do is just assume they can step in the room and be there.
Yeah. They're going to have to meet their quota, and I'm special.
Yeah. And at the same time, I also encourage any woman who is filling a quota, if that's what it is, they take it and then learn. Okay. Right. So get in the room and then learn. Men do that all the time. Right. But being prepared and also kind of understanding what you're getting into, because there's risks and responsibilities. There's liabilities with public companies. Make sure you've got a company that has directors and officers insurance, so that if lawsuit, they're going to cover your legal.
You don't lose your house.
Right, exactly. So, because you are liable as a
Mm-hmm.
director for that
Mm-hmm.
particular company, but there's a preparation process,
Mm-hmm.
and there's lots of information out there, and that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I help teach people about board governance, financial
Mm-hmm.
acumen, how to get on boards, what are the risks and
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities, how to behave in the boardroom
Mm-hmm.
as that minority,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all new territory to these
Mm-hmm.
guys. They're used to having their locker room style, and
Right.
now they've got a woman there, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not their wife, sister, or mother,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, ugh, how do I
Mm-hmm.
behave?
Mm-hmm.
And are they holding back? Are they
Mm-hmm.
not sharing things about what's going
Mm-hmm.
on with you because they don't know exactly how to
Right.
communicate with you? So I think that there's a learning curve there. It's not a huge one. You don't have to go to get a 4-year degree.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it in a short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
but make sure that you're getting it from reliable sources.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm an existing director.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of experience. When you talked about nonprofits,
Mm-hmm.
throughout my career, I would raise my hand and say yes if someone
Mm-hmm.
invited me to sit on a committee or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I have 18 years of board work in the trade association that I sat on and
Mm-hmm.
I ran. I had a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
foundation for my daughter for 15 years that I
Mm-hmm.
ran that board. I sat on numerous committees and different nonprofits before that. And then the board work that I do now, when you put it all together, it tallies up over 60 years of experience.
Wow.
And I did that at the same time that
Mm-hmm.
I'm running a full-time businesses. I'm raising kids. I was a divorced mom for 14 years, blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. So
Mm-hmm.
ladies, don't whine to me, because I tell you what,
You've
you
been
can
there,
handle.
you've done it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, suck it up. And, we can do it. And we really need women leaders. So I have a lot of board experience that I didn't plan like this, but it was just an
Mm-hmm.
augment to my career
Right.
that I think was very helpful. And so, I was pretty prepared, although I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it when somebody tapped me,
Mm-hmm.
to step in the room and go ahead and just go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is. So when you
Right.
say, now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to look into some things. Now, I offer a primer course. It's on special during the pandemic for
Mm-hmm.
$59.50.
Ooh.
And it has 3 modules on how to write your board resume,
Mm.
how to do a board
Mhm.
interview, and then how to find a board.
Mhm.
And then I have a bonus interview, which is an interview I do with CEO
Mhm.
John Kelly, who is an equity, champion
Mhm.
in the boardroom. He's an amazing guy.
Mhm.
Everybody loves him. He's just awesome.
Mhm.
So he gives us tips on like
Mhm.
what we don't know as women that we're projecting in the room,
Right.
when the way
Mhm.
it's just the things we do.
Mhm.
And so anyway, there's a lot of value there and not a lot of risk on the person's side who would
Mhm.
like to know, how do I do this? And does it
Mhm.
make sense for me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny when you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking about was, you might be the only woman on that board.
Yeah.
And, and you had mentioned, the men aren't quite sure what to do and all those various things. And so one of the first things that might happen is they're going to look at the woman and say, you can be our secretary. You can be the
Oh, no.
scribe. You can take minutes. And oh, honey, and but can you also get us coffee? Because they're, and I mean, you mentioned the age. I mean, many of these boards, these are more mature. These are old guys who are used to the fact that in many cases, women were their assistants, they were their secretaries. And so all of a sudden, you're on that board and they don't see you as being the same level. They see you as, oh, hey, you can go get the coffee for us now.
So that's a really good point that you bring up. And I work very hard in my training to help every individual woman that I work with to get them to that point of that peer. So,
Right.
and the other way too, if you're very good, like you're, very mental about what you do, you could be up here speaking down to them, right?
Right. And that is a pretty good assumption in many cases.
Very technical, and you intimidate them, and then they're not going to talk to you.
No.
So it's super important. Like you just did that visual. That's what I do. You and I must be sisters.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is so important. You don't want to be subservient, but you don't want to be over here. Right. So, it's super important to get there. So, but how do you know how to get there? So that's the secret language that I talk about, the executive vernacular that allows everybody to relax and to be in the place where we are now talking on the same level. And when you talk about it's so funny when you mentioned that, because that so ticks me off when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the men who know me and who've been around me would never do that to me. In fact, they go get my coffee,
Right.
you know. But the men who might come into the picture from an outside group that don't know who I am, that has happened, where I would that the assumption that, oh, I'm the secretary in the office, I'm not the director. But the guys defend me, and the guys are the ones who actually straighten them out and point it out to them, like, and this is Michelle, she's also a director and heads, you know, she's the chair of our comp committee. And the guys go, oh, sorry, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, exactly. But remember that this is ingrained, right? So I think there's also room for forgiveness there, right? And that's why I bring John Kelly in to talk about what's the man thinking? You know, how is this affecting them? And what are the assumptions that they're making based on how we're behaving? So it's important for us to behave in a way where we don't get in the room, and then as we get up to get a coffee, we go, can I get anybody anything?
Right. Because we're like you said, we're kind of used to those things.
Exactly.
They say, you know, hey, we need somebody to take notes, and we go, okay. You know, no, sit on that hand.
Right. So, and on the public boards, they always, my experience is that there's always an appointed corporate secretary. And so I've never had that happen. But, you know, but the other stuff I have. Yeah.
You know, and part of that is that, as you know, we've been talking about the fact that we bring different personality traits. You know, we many times we like to be helpful. You know, and so sometimes it is helpful to get everybody coffee. You know, I'm up, I'll get you something too. You know, and that's fine as long as you're comfortable when the guy's up saying, hey, you know, can you get me a cup of coffee too? You know, and so kind of bringing that back in, but it is hard, especially if you are the only woman. You know, I mentioned that I've served on you know, lots of nonprofit boards, and they've been very male oriented type of things, because in many cases they're sports. So you know, so that is clearly, and it's very difficult to not be the honey, the sweetie in the room. You know, and I learned very quickly. I mean, I had one guy that he continually called me honey. And part of that was, I mean, that was just him. But that's not an excuse. So I wasn't, you know, but another part of it is he couldn't remember my name, you know, and so, I mean, there was kind of that level of, or lack of, respect. And so I called him Sweet Cheeks, and it only took about 2 of those when he figured out what my name was. You know, and I mean, it was just one of those, because I didn't call him out. I didn't embarrass him. Right. But, you know, now there were, you know, like when I would say that, of course, the guys in the room was, you know, but yeah, he figured out very quickly that calling me honey was not the appropriate thing to do. You know, and it is, you know, it's interesting, I think, as we see younger women who do know how to stand up for themselves, you know, and not put up with that crap. You know, people, you know, we scoff at, ew, millennials. I'm sorry. I think millennials are one of the greatest things in business that we can have, because, you know, they don't see limitations. They're like, well, why can't I be doing that? And don't tell me I can't, because then I'm going to break my neck trying to do it. But, you know, it's some of the, you know, it's those things where, you know, we as women have to, you know, as you were saying, we have to get over those things that we're used to doing too.
Yeah, it's practice on both sides. So that's why there's new behavior that has to be learned. So that's part of the preparation. It isn't just book knowledge. It actually is culture knowledge. And where do you get that? You have to get that from someone who's actually an active board member and who has that kind of experience and knows that. And I have been fortunate throughout my career in that I've been taken by the hand through all these processes through that executive level, and and invited in. So, yeah.
Right. You know, you mentioned a key word a little bit ago, and that's the word mentor. You know, and I think we all know it's important to have mentors, but in this case, you're probably going to have a mentor that is a man.
Of course.
Especially because there's just not that many women there. But why is it so important? You know, we're going to talk about, you know, why should we get one? And then even more importantly, why do we need to start being mentors?
Well, think about if you were going to go to a foreign country and you knew you had an assignment, and it might be a business assignment, and it's not just about, you're given this job to open an office in a foreign country, and let's say it's in the Middle East, and you're a woman, and you know that you've got a lot of challenges because women are not as openly accepted in the Middle East as they are in Western countries. So what are the things that you would think about as far as how do I prepare myself, and what can I do to help make myself as successful as possible? Well, you might study the culture, you might align yourself with gentlemen who are doing a lot of business over there. You might align yourself with people in the government here who have connections over there that can help ease your way in there. And to me, it's like you do everything possible to make yourself be comfortable and make the other people feel comfortable with who you are, because you are the outsider. And so it is up to you to learn the language to some extent, learn the culture to some extent, and be respectful. Okay. So when I talk about the patriarchal model, which has been in place for thousands of years, I talk about it with honor and respect. It's important for us to honor and respect it. We all live within it. So when I see patriarchal bashing signs in offices of women and stuff, I'm like, I don't agree with that. I've been very successful by participating in that model, and by respecting the gentleman and the processes and learning how to do it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's so important that we're not being taken advantage of. But as you said, we're not going in and beating people about the head saying, I'm a woman, I deserve to be here, it's tricky, especially if you're the first woman, or, there's just a handful, because, as we've been saying, they're not quite sure what to do with us. But if we go in and we want to be, let's be blunt, the ball breakers, then that's not going to work. So it's educating yourself as much as possible as to how to do that. And that really comes back to that mentor question, that you need to find someone who is your advocate, who is your friend, who's going to help you through this process, maybe even just make those introductions. But, because it is, in any new situation, I don't care if you're male or female, it is, you have to know how to get in there in an appropriate way.
Right. And also keep in mind that as a woman, and being the only woman, you stand out. You have an advantage. So I had a mentor years and years ago, my age, and he said to me very early on, he said, I probably whined about something that was going on. And he goes, you know what? You need to realize how fortunate you are, because you are a woman, you stand out, and you're invited into rooms I can't get into.
Right.
When I try and get into them, I'm competing with 20 guys who are wearing the same color suit and who look just like me.
Back to the cookie cutters.
The same degree as I have. So the differentiation piece for us is much more difficult than it is for you. I was like, good to know. A lot of doors are open for you as a woman because you're different than the guys.
Right.
So, it isn't always the case, but it definitely was true in my situation. And the more I was accepted, John knows Bob. John feels great with Michelle, very comfortable. So John tells Bob, you should have her come to your mine site.
Right.
Bob goes, hey, Michelle, come to our mine site. We want you to come and look. So it just spreads, right? And that comfort level is like who you know, right?
Right.
Exactly. It's a relationship. It's that. So mentorship turns into your network, into your relationships, and into the trusting, right? So if you say you're going to do something, deliver, and be respectful of yourself. Like, I'm very fortunate. I was never, accosted or had any of those kinds of things happen to me throughout my career. And so I feel very fortunate in that. And I just feel like I was respected throughout. Of course, I had my haters.
Right.
I did. There were definitely men who were like, why are you here? I don't want
women.
you here.
Let's be honest.
Oh, well, that's
a totally different thing.
But you bring up a good point, because if you heard my intro, I had 3 decades in 2 male-dominated industries. And I didn't trust women. I had maybe 3 or 4 women
Mm-hmm.
in my whole career
Mm-hmm.
that I considered colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I lost one in December. Bless
Oh.
her heart.
Mm-hmm.
I miss her dearly.
Mm-hmm.
And but so how did I come to teach women?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I never belonged to a women's group.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they don't have the power and the money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get where I want to go
Mm-hmm.
by the
Right.
guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I was belonged to all the male, organizations,
Mm-hmm.
I hung
Mm-hmm.
out with them at the mine
Mm-hmm.
sites and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was a real transformation for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
how do I go from I can't trust women because they stab me in the back, and the
Mm-hmm.
kind of things that would happen to me,
Mm-hmm.
like I put this board together of this trade association, come to a board meeting one day, and one of the guys goes, "Hey, Michele, it's my week to be sleeping with you." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Did
Oh.
you hear the rumor?
Mm-hmm.
So and so was telling everybody that you sleep with all the board members."
Mm-hmm. Because
And so
that's obviously the only way we can get
that's
that
the
board.
only
Yeah.
way you
Mm-hmm.
could be where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a big ha ha ha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so how do you handle that? I always have like the poker face, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Tease with the guys. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, no one ever crossed that line.
Right.
It was in this. That's how guys are when they're with each other, and they
Mm-hmm.
considered me as one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
So they all were like, we can always tell these jokes
Mm-hmm.
with Michele around. I was like, yeah, right. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get to business, but we'll tell the jokes
Mm-hmm.
and go on. So I've been stabbed in the back by women,
Mm-hmm.
and in pretty big ways. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I get here, fast forward to this point, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm interviewing these women. I'm like, yeah, you're all great, but I can't trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd love to help you, but I can't trust you. So why would I waste my time? I know something you don't know, but why should I share it? Why
Mm-hmm.
don't I just go get on my board 3 and 4
Right.
and go
Mm-hmm.
on with my life? Because that was a choice I had,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I had to go through a huge transformation inside,
Mm-hmm.
which was, how do I reconcile this?
Mm-hmm.
If I decide to go forward and
Mm-hmm.
help other women, how do I switch
Mm-hmm.
that? And you know what the biggest switch was? And this is kind of that patriarchal
Mm-hmm.
piece, I think,
Mm-hmm.
switching from the whole process of doing everything for me and my
Mm-hmm.
family and my wealth and my well-being into doing it for you. Now, you and I have both been parts of big nonprofits
Mm-hmm.
and passionate about helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different switch that went off for
Mm-hmm.
me, though, personally. It was like, this isn't about me. This is
Mm-hmm.
about you. How do I help you get on a board?
Mm-hmm.
How do I make you successful?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the only way I could get there was to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
truthful, open, vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I am all those things now,
Mm-hmm.
in front of rooms of women, in front of
Mm-hmm.
videos, in front of women, and letting go of that, having to pretend and
Mm-hmm.
facade stuff and all that, and truly being there for these other
Mm-hmm.
people to help make them succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want them in the boardroom. I'm a
Right.
pusher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I don't take people who don't want to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
I only go with people who are willing to work at it and that I can help push.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's funny because we were saying we're sisters somewhere. When I've worked in an all female or dominantly female environment, I haven't liked it either. I remember one time when I worked, and it was for a nonprofit, and nonprofits tend to have more female employees. I mean, that's just for a variety of reasons, and the nasty catty things that happened there, you would never have guys do. In fact, I remember there was a box of cat food, Meow Mix, and it would make the rounds. Now, it was a negative. I mean, you were not happy to get the box of Meow Mix. If you came back to your desk and you discovered that you had the Meow Mix, that meant you'd been bad.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, at the same point, it was like, what? And yeah, I mean, that never would have happened with a guy. And all of these various things where, like guys can squabble, they can fight, and then they go, okay, we're going to go out for a beer.
Right.
Women, they hold it in, they hold that grudge, they might smile at you, they might be very sweet to your face, but 10 years later, they're going to do something. And so it's very bizarre, but we still have to embrace that we are women. And so when we're in those all male environments, it is very important, I think, to remember that we are women and we're there because they want that perspective. It's interesting. I spent many, many years thinking that I had to, when I went to a meeting, whatever it was, I had to wear a suit. That whole male type of how you dress type of thing.
Yes.
I do not own a suit now. Yeah, let's be honest. I also haven't been to a meeting in a year, but long before this, I got rid of all my suits. I think I have one.
Wow.
Sometimes you might, but now I still dress professionally when I go somewhere. But it is something where, I thought, am I wearing that suit because I like the suit? And that's something totally different. Or was I wearing that suit because all of the men were wearing suits? And so it was kind of it was an interesting shift when I thought, I can wear like a bright colored blazer with a pretty blouse on,
sure,
and be just as professional as the guy in his suit and tie.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Like, I'm a woman of color, I wear a lot of colored things. So, but I always wear, blazers, or I'm pretty dressed up, and the guys don't have those choices. They're in, they've got to have
Pretty
on
easy for them. What tie am I wearing today? Right.
Exactly. That's the only difference, is in their ties and stuff, and their shoes and that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right on that end. I do also, though, like you said, you still are very professional. For me, it makes me feel executive. And I think that's why where men do show up in the tie and the suit, is because they feel executive.
Right.
And it does give you a mindset. Like, I'm here to solve problems. I'm the boss. Another thing I wanted to share, as you were talking about the boardroom and about the, like the woman who comes in and she's the only one, keep in mind that there isn't one person around the room that's the only voice at the table.
Right.
All these decisions are collaborative. Okay. So it doesn't matter what your gender, color, race, any of that, religion are. When we get down to it, we're really talking about the issue, right? We've got this situation on our agenda, and that's what we're dealing with.
How do we solve that problem?
Exactly. And that's, to me, where the gender goes away. I feel like I walk in the room competing with my intellect and my experience and my background. And that's it. And so it's not a competition once I get in the group, and we're collaboratively working on things, and we don't always agree on everything. But there's not a case where there's a rogue director that takes it away and goes somewhere with it, that it changes the direction. You have to have, it's like a jury. You have to have agreement. And that's what the resolution says. And that's what is made public and put out to the marketplace. So that's something I think else to be mindful of, because I think women are a little afraid that it's like, it's up to me. I've got to do it.
Yes.
I've got to change the world right now by myself, and that type of thing. And keep in mind that it may take you 2 or 3 years to build that relationship to the point where you actually do have more influence. Depending. It depends on what they bring you in because of, and what they're trying to solve.
Right.
Because they're looking at your skills. They're looking at your background in order to get the right person to fit in the matrix, right? Because they want diversity. And, we talk about diversity, and all the guys on my board are diverse. One guy's a mining engineer. One's a mining operator. One's a CPA. One owns, real estate, commercial properties, and car dealerships. One is we have this diverse group. So we do have diversity of thought, but it's the way we think. So when you were talking about men are objective, men can have a battle and then go play golf, right? So women are relational. So we don't ever forgive or forget. Okay. And so those are some of the key things that, we culturally, it's important to learn and to know as you're going into these very high powered level meetings.
Right. And it's always critical to remember, whether it's a for-profit corporation or a nonprofit, if you're on that board, you're on that board for a reason. Even if it was, okay, we've got this all white over 63 male board, we need a female. You were still picked because you were the right female for it.
Thank you.
You had that knowledge, you had that experience, and so sure, it can be intimidating. I mean, anytime you go into any situation like that, but you're there because not because you were going to be that person to sit in that seat and fill that empty seat. Just anybody would do. No, you're there because you fill that seat with your knowledge, with your experience. Well, we had a little technical glitch. As you can tell, we've changed clothes. We've changed how we look a little bit. I have done almost 700 interviews, and yesterday was the very first time that I ever had the power go off, and it just went off just like that, which was because I'm sure that Michele and I were talking about such a hot, fun topic that we just shut everything down. So we're back to finish the interview and to follow up on what we were talking about right before the power went out. We were discussing the fact that, sometimes women feel like they get put on a board to fill that spot, to fill that seat, to fill that quota. And what we talked about was that is not true. Women are being placed on boards because of their knowledge, because of their experience. They're put on those boards because they earned that right to be there.
Right. And I believe that what I have witnessed over the past few years since I started doing this work and training women for boards is that the specifications coming from the companies that are indicating we want diversity, that's code word for a woman on our board. They're also giving us the specs on what they want the skills to be. So just to your point, I've seen this huge shift from let's just get a gal in the seat and that way we can tick our box off, right? And that we did it, to, well, let's take a minute and see what do we need. So here's what's happened. The pendulum has swung completely the other way. So I'll get a specification and they want someone that has like 14 backgrounds, and I'm like, okay, now can you find a guy?
Right. Yeah, you got a little too many requirements there,
yeah,
folks.
I said I have 3 women that could fill all that, but I don't have one.
Right.
Do you have one man that can do all those things that you're looking for?
Right.
So as per usual, they're asking us to pick up the bigger load and carry and go forward. And of course, there are so many competent, amazing, experienced women leaders who are perfectly, they have the perfect background to actually be in the seat. They may not realize it themselves and they may not kind of know how to get in there, but I've met hundreds of amazing women that I think, would have those qualifications for the right board, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny. I kind of have that same discussion with people when I'm working and doing LinkedIn training for people who are looking for jobs. They've got the list of, the potential job, and it's got 15 things on it. You must be able to do da, 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 da.
Yeah.
A guy looks at it and goes, I can do 5. 5 I can learn to do, and 5 I can delegate. So I'm going to apply. A woman looks at it and goes, I can do 14. And since I can't do that last one, I can't apply. And that's that, in a lot of ways, that's the pressure that we put on ourselves. And that's not a bad thing, because it really does mean that we're wanting to be the best that we can be and to be the best employee, board candidate, whatever it is. But, we do need to kind of think, okay, of those qualifications, what are the critical ones, and do we meet those?
Yeah.
But, that really got me thinking about, so so we've decided, okay, I want to do this. I want to be on a board. So, then I have absolutely no idea what to do, and you've got a program that women can participate in. And we talked about it in the first part of the interview. But give us more information about that, because I think that's where we're kind of losing things is, we want to do this, we want to serve, but we don't know what the next step is.
Correct. So I have 2 programs right now, and one of them is on my website at acellc.consulting. They both are highlighted, but one of them is an online, what I call my primer series.
Okay.
And I'm running a pandemic special. It's been going since a year ago. And it is priced at 90% off. So it was $595. It's $59.50. The primer has 3 modules: board resume. Your board resume is very different than your professional resume. then how to go through a board interview, again, very different. And then how to get on a board and talking a little bit about that. And then I have a bonus video, which is an interview with CEO John Kelly, who's a champion for diversity in the boardroom and gives us some amazing tips. Actually, even if you weren't going for a board, if you went through that, I just had a coaching call yesterday with a lady that finished the primer. And she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've already been applying some of the things that you have in there. And of course, what you did with John Kelly is like gold to me. She goes, priceless. I've changed my behavior and I'm already seeing results in my personal business as to how people are responding to me. And I'm really, really happy. And so that's a way to kind of get your feet wet. And, you know, is this something I'd like to do? The bigger question is, if you're serious, I want to get on a board, I really want to get ready. I have a certification course. So it's 8 weeks long. It's a virtual right now, live, and we do a 4-day retreat workshop, which there's lots of interaction, even though we're virtual, and it works. Trust me, I've been teaching it now for over a year, and we've got women getting on boards. Like, just had a woman that got on the Pinterest board. And then there's like home study time. So you go back to work and kids and life, and you have about 4 hours of homework every week. And I'm a tough taskmaster. So I'm like, are you doing your homework? And then we reconvene at the end. And during that 8-week period too, we're doing draft after draft after draft of your board resume to help make you come forward with the best representation of your executive self so that you rise to the top. I also have this certification from Corporate Directors International, again, to let's eliminate as many barriers as possible as women. Right? So you have a certification. If you're in there with 3 other women who are competing and you've got a certification and they don't, that could be the deciding factor. So that also is something that, you know, is a check mark for a lot of nom-gov chairs who are looking at people who are trying to get on boards. And then you become part of the ACE graduate group. I have 91 graduates as of today, and we have filled almost 50 board seats so far. 5 of them have become CEOs, 2 new companies have been formed. And so it's transformational. These women have come in, I think I want to do this, I want to move into the next stage upwards in my career, and they just take off like rockets. And they have me in their court. I become mentor, cheerleader, pusher, you know. I'm all there for them. You know, it's like, it's really important that they get what they want, and I'm there to help them do that. So those are the 2 offerings that I have. And I do run early bird specials on my certification course. And so you can get, you know, take advantage of that. And if people are interested, I encourage them to reach out, because I only teach that one a couple times a year.
Okay, great. I love it. I love it.
Small groups, 8 to 12 women. So
which then becomes kind of, I'm assuming, kind of like its own little mastermind group.
Oh, they are. Yeah. They are off the charts. When they actually connect with each other, and now they have a whole network. Right. And I make sure I diversify the group, you know, so that now your network, you know, is in telecom and, you know, cybersecurity and mining, of course, and engineering, because that's kind of where I'm at, finance,
right,
and all over the world.
Yeah, because the more connections we have, the better it is.
Right. Right.
I love it.
Right.
So we've done this. We've figured out, you know, we want to do this. We've got our ducks in a row.
Right.
How the heck do we even figure out that there's opportunities out there? I mean, it's not like we can pick up the want ads, you know, probably not being listed on LinkedIn jobs. So how do we determine and how do we even find that there are board opportunities?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's a tough answer. There's lots of different things. So now we're seeing online that there are different companies and organizations that are offering this database that they claim CEOs and boards are going to the database to look for directors. Don't buy it. That is not how directors find another director. I have never heard anyone in a boardroom or an executive say, let's go look at, you know, an online service to find our next director. It's about relationship. So the best way you're going to find out is really when you, and this is hard for women, you need to start speaking about yourself and bragging about yourself
Mm-hmm.
and letting people know that you're looking
Mm-hmm.
to get on a board.
Right.
And I'm talking about your family members,
Mm-hmm.
your friends, people, strangers, people you meet in a networking event, even online.
Mm-hmm.
You need to communicate and represent yourself. And it's kind of like setting an intention,
Mm-hmm.
and then the universe brings things
Right.
towards
Right.
you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a job for
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
to change your brand,
Mm-hmm.
number one, and then get your playbook together,
Mm-hmm.
what I call your action plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then execute.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of women who are really, you were talking about the perfectionist gene of I have to have 16 things
Mm-hmm.
out of 16. We can dive in and get all the degrees and all that kind of stuff. But what we missed out on was the time spent building the relationships.
Right.
And yes, you have to be qualified. Yes,
Mhm.
you have to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
But most important, you have to be known. They
Mhm.
have to know you're there. You have to have relationships,
Right. Right.
meaningful
Mm-hmm.
relationships, give and take relationships. And that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I was so successful, is either because of my, just who I am naturally, and or my mentors,
Mm-hmm.
combined, of being friendly and, meeting
Mm-hmm.
people and inquisitive, like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you do? How does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do it that way? And then, taking that and turning it into something of
Mm-hmm.
value for some of those people. Well, thank
Right.
you for helping me. I have somebody I just met, I think
Mm-hmm.
would be a great contact.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah, it's just like if you were looking for a job, you've got to put it out there.
Right. You do.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you want to be prepared, because this is a
Right.
different game.
Oh yeah, if you
Right?
get that call, you'd better have that, because especially with boards, because it's not like they meet every day.
Right.
And so when they're looking to fill a position, it is a very limited time frame where they're wanting to do that.
Right. And at the same time, it can be keep in mind, it can be a long process for
Right.
you, because if you're at the beginning of the
Mhm.
year, so the
Mhm.
annual general meetings are
Mhm.
typically coming up here in June, July. That's when they vote
Mhm.
them in. So all the picking happened before that, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. They've been vetting, they've been doing all of those various things.
right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yep.
So from time to time, you'll see boards appoint someone in the middle of the year, but at the same time, the majority of boards are doing all of those changes at the AGM,
Right.
the annual general meeting. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, because people leave boards for a variety of reasons in the middle
Right.
of a term, and so they need to fill those. And my guess is when they do that, that really is we need somebody now, who do you know type of thing. So that's why this is important to be doing this all the time.
Right.
Not just thinking, okay, well, this season of this is coming up.
Right.
And I was also thinking it's important, especially when you're first starting out, to be realistic with what you're thinking. I mean, you might be a tech person, but immediately serving on the Microsoft board is probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
And now that we all have our big, hairy, audacious goals. So that's okay to think about that. But find the smaller startups, find those where, most importantly, you can make an impact. I think that's one of the things. And then, kind of build from there. And you might just discover that small board is really what's going to get your engine going, as opposed to being on the big boards. But I was also thinking, it's as we're as this is, where we record these in advance, sometimes in two parts. But it's we're doing this also right after a whole month of LinkedIn training. And I was thinking, that's so important, because LinkedIn is a great way, especially to be connecting with some of those very senior level people that there's no way you could just meet, any other point in time, especially if they're not local. So you're not going to meet them at a networking event or chamber event or something like that. And so, I'm thinking LinkedIn really is a great resource. Plus, it's a great way to be putting your information out there, your views, all of those great things. So, I think that's a very important tool when you're wanting to do this.
Yeah, that platform, and the fact that you're doing it for an entire month is really amazing. We do include very succinct, direct coaching and bring in experts on LinkedIn to speak with our candidates in the certification. So she looks at everybody's individual page and does exactly what you're saying. So they've already been working on the board resume. Now we talk about how do you change that brand on LinkedIn, and what are those those specific words that go in there that are going to help recruiters if they're going in and looking for particular things to actually find you on LinkedIn. My frustration on the other suggestion of go look, you can approach executives on LinkedIn, is that yes, you can. And at the same time, the guys that are the big fish, they typically either are not on LinkedIn or
it's an aide, an assistant.
Yeah. Or you can't get in unless you have the premium LinkedIn kind of access thing. So and you got to be careful. You don't want to don't want to make an approach that's going to be annoying,
it's all about building that relationship first. And so again, this is, you said it several times during this interview, this is a time consuming process. It's not that I decide this week that I want to be on a board, and by May 1st, or I guess we're broadcasting this after May 1st, June 1st, then I'm going to be on a board. That's, is it impossible for that to happen? No. I mean, there could be some weird fluky thing that happens, but 99.99999% of the time, this really is a process. As we've been saying, you have to get all of your information in a row. You have to have you have to have figured out, hey, what boards, could benefit from me, and what boards could I benefit from being on, all of those things. And that's just going to take time. So, that's where this is great to really start thinking about this. And maybe the pandemic is giving us time to do that. You're not driving to those networking events. So spend that hour working on this, and really start going through this. But oh my gosh, Michele, we're finished, almost finished with part 2 of this interview. Gotta love technology, things just happen. It's very interesting. I was looking on your website, and you've got bios and photos of candidates who have been through your program, and talk about inspirational women. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And so, I would think that for anybody, I mean, it's just great to go in and see those women. And maybe they're people that you want to reach out to and think, wow, this would just be a great person to add to my network. But it's you've got some wonderful people there, and they do have absolutely terrific criteria. But if somebody wants to be part of that, again, tell us how they find your information.
So the best place is to go to the website at acellc.consulting, or you can send me an email directly. I probably, you have that in the show notes. And just reach out. We do have an application. So you can go on there and click on apply now. That will come directly to me. Everyone gets vetted. I interview everyone in advance, and we have a chat, and says, figure out where you are. Is it now? Is it in 2 years? Kind of, what are you thinking? Is it realistic? And people say, do you ever say no to anyone? I go, yes, I do.
It's got to be a good fit for both.
It isn't for everyone. Board work is not for everyone. So, but I think I have a pretty good gauge of that. And the majority of people that do think that they want to do this, I think they can. So I want to help them. So that's the best way to do that. And then, just like you said, look at some of the profiles, because we have all our candidates there. And also you can look at our courses and check those out, but you can apply right there.
Right. Yeah. And as we have been saying, it is so important for women to get on these boards, whether it is a small company or, a big, massive international company. We need our voices heard. We need to share our knowledge. We need to share our expertise. And I mean, let's say the sky's the limit. We're not going to talk about any ceilings. It is just so critical for women to be much more a part of this process. And I think this has been fascinating to find out what the process is. I mean, because we started the program by saying most people have absolutely no idea how to even get on a board. And so I think this has been so fun and so cool. Again, your website is acellc.consulting. And so, that's where all the information is. You've got your contact information, all those various things there. So are there any final words, Michele, that you want to leave us with?
I just really want to reiterate that I'm passionate about getting more women leaders in these roles of decision making. So my intention is to help as many women as possible who are willing and courageous enough to step up into these big decision making roles, because we have a world out there that needs us, and it's time to step up and be mama bear in the boardroom. Okay.
I love it. I love it. Well, what a great way to end this program. I really have been having so much fun, and I need to check out more on your website just to see more about the programs. But I am Deb Creer. I've been having an absolutely wonderful time twice talking with Michele Ashby. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.